In the Trenches back, week 2 on its way. We have a special introduction to the show. We finally have our fantasy guy, Joe Packer, in the house. We're going to go ahead and start with the stardom or sit-em.
Everybody, thank you for having me on. Let me tell you something, man. This show, In the Trenches, I have been waiting to get on, and I've been waiting for this phone call, and I'm so happy to finally be here. So thank you to everybody that got me on this show. They brought me in for a little fantasy look, and honestly, man, I'm gonna do my best here. I know what I'm kind of doing in fantasy, but we're gonna see how it goes. So for me personally, my guarantee starters this week, right out the gate, man, you got to go Kyler Murray. That kid has been balling. He's got a brand new weapon in Deandre Hopkins. You have Larry Fitzgerald. You have your running back with Kenyon Drake, who's really coming to his own. Kyler Murray has that speed and ability to get out of the pocket and make the play. And for me, that's one of my surefire starters this week is definitely Kyler Murray going against Washington. My second one that I'm really interested in seeing, this is one of my go-to guys in FanDuel all the time, and you can get him relatively cheap, right around the $7,600 range, maybe a little cheaper, is Josh Allen. We saw what happened last week with Miami and New England, and it's no shot at Miami, but Miami's still up and coming, and they're still trying to figure out where their legs are and how they're going to go in the game. To me, Buffalo is a better team than New England. So Josh Allen is going to be your guy. And with the new weapon in Stephon Diggs, that's somebody I definitely see blowing up this week against Miami. My QBs to avoid, personally, that I see, Russell Wilson against the Patriots. Patriots have opened up a new playbook that they could never open up with Cam Newton, things like that. And that defense stayed the same, and they're still relatively strong. It's a Sunday night football game. Still early in the season. You never know what you're going to get with the Pats, so I really would avoid Russell Wilson. Same thing with Daniel Jones going against Chicago. Just not a play that I like, man. Daniel Jones, he fared well last week, made some really immature passes that we saw with the the interception in the end zone where he just kind of tossed it up. He still makes bad decisions like that, and the Bears had that defense to put the pressure on him. Going into receiver-wise, I'm definitely going to say Deandre Hopkins against Washington is somebody that you want to look out for. Showed out last week, had a huge game over 150 yards in receiving, a couple touchdowns, kid balled out. One of my sleepers this week with receivers is actually Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell has stepped into almost a leadership role, it feels like. He had 9 targets, which was a team high last week. He had 6 catches for 71 yards. He's going to take some of that pressure off T.Y., and I think that's going to be good for T.Y. in the future. And also Cooper Kupp is another one. With the Eagles, you definitely want to look good for Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp only really hauled in 4 receptions, 40 yards. That was more of a warm-up game. We kind of skipped preseason. I definitely see him coming in this week, and that Eagles defense is very depleted. We saw what happened against Washington. They fell apart against Washington. Wentz couldn't get a pass off. I do see LA going in there to Washington and Cooper Kupp having a great game. For me, wide receiver-wise, you got wide receivers to avoid. Definitely Julian Edelman against Seattle. I'm not seeing Julian Edelman this week at all. With a different playbook, such as Cam running that offense and at the helm, you're not relying on the passing. You have more options with the RPO, and you have more options with Cam taking off up the middle. I don't see him doing too much in that game with Seattle. This is one here that a no-go for receivers for me was Devontae Adams, and I'll explain why. I'm a Packer fan. I am a Packer fan. Here's why.
You gotta explain this one.
I'm going to explain, and if I'm just rambling, guys, please jump in on me, man. I'm just trying to get through this for you guys, but Devontae Adams for me, man.
Now that you said, let me stop you real quick. Let me go to Coach here, because he wasn't a very big Kyler Murray fan, but I think week 1 might have turned him around. Are you starting Murray? Would you start Murray in this game?
Murray's a good start this week. Even though since 2018, Kyler Murray has been sacked 50 times, I think that the offense in Arizona has taken another step forward. Washington's D-line last week, everybody know it was a dynamic week. Ron Rivera, he's going to game plan for Kyler Murray. But I think that Arizona offense is just going to be a bit too much for Washington.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, man. And that's with Deandre Hopkins coming in. That gives Kyler Murray that extra oomph in his pass game to know all he has to do is put it in the area, and DeAndre Hopkins is going to find it. So you're definitely going to see Kyler Murray's numbers climb over the season, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, I think he's going to be a stud this season. I think he's easily going to be a top 5 quarterback this year.
Yeah, he's a FanDuel quarterback. He is somebody like a Josh Allen or a Derek Carr that is your FanDuel quarterback, because the way FanDuel works, you want to stack on your running backs. You're going to get your receivers that get your, 7, 8 catches. Your quarterback is, that mid-range Josh Allen, Kyler Murray kind of player. Your running backs is where you really, really want to stack. That's where your money's at in FanDuel and in DraftKings. And I've learned that over the past couple of years with FanDuel. But like I was saying, man, Davante Adams, and I know I shook some people with this with Davante Adams. Give it to me again. Give it to me again. There it is. Yo, my boy JB over there just having a heart attack on my shit.
I literally just sent that guy like a 3-minute apology and tagged him on Twitter about how sorry I was and everything. I always thought he was a beast, but we just kind of we just didn't mention him in previous shows, and he just balled out. One thing before you go to Davante Adams, Kyler Murray, again, I said it in the previous show, I was never really a huge fan of his, but let me tell you something between it, and I said it when we're talking about QBs with our fantasy show, whether it's throwing, running, both, now he's got DeAndre Hopkins, even against that Washington defense, I can see him putting up numbers, because remember, this is not real life. This is not win or loss. This is fantasy, and he may be running for his life against that front four, but he's gonna run and he's gonna get you yards. And I totally agree with the Kyler Murray. The Davante Adams thing, I'll let you have the floor. But well,
let me explain why.
Davante, let me let you. If you ever see this, I don't agree with the whole thing. You're on my team for forever. So go ahead.
All right. So I have been a Packer fan for the past 28 years. I'm 32 years old. I can remember football my earliest about 4 or 5 years old, watching McMahon for the Bears and things like that. So for me, this Detroit rivalry has always been a rivalry where Detroit beats us on weird games. I don't see them beating us. However, I do see Davante getting shut down with a double team. After they lost Darius Slay to free agency last year to Philly, I just see them, I wanted Davante to have a huge game, but I see them throwing the double team at him the entire game. Look for players, if you're deep in your roster on a 12-man fantasy league or something like that, or you're going to FanDuel, look for players like Lazaro or Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I think those are going to be your winners this week. And honestly, if not through the air, we all know how Matt LaFleur is. Matt LaFleur likes to put the ball in the running back's hands. If I have to make my bold prediction of the week, Aaron Jones has 3 rushing touchdowns, 1 receiving with 180 total yards.
Who has Aaron Jones here? Because I don't.
That would be me.
That is my pick of the week with running backs is Aaron Jones. But I don't see Davante. I hope Davante proves me wrong. I hope he has an amazing game. Do I see it happening? Not against Detroit. Does anybody have a comment on that before I move on, please?
Actually, you know what? You brought up a very good point. I follow, because I remember one of my best buddies is a Packers fan. I follow that Detroit Packer series. I watch those games at least once a year, whenever I get a chance. And you're right, for some ungodly reason. Now they are playing in Lambeau, but still, for some ungodly reason, Detroit plays Green Bay, and it's kind of like it doesn't matter who's good, who's bad, who's the star, who's not the star, who's hurt. Detroit gives them a game, and like you said, it'll be the type of game where Davante Adams is coming off a phenomenal statistical game, and they'll come in and just run Aaron Jones all day to just quell that Detroit defense, and they'll win. They'll beat the Lions, but maybe Davante will just be like, okay, I just had a regular game because it all went to Aaron Jones. So
6 catches, 80 yards, maybe a touchdown.
Yeah.
I don't see him being a bust, but I don't see him being that over the top player.
Right.
Let's move into tight ends now. We look at tight ends, and I have 2 here that are my go-to tight ends for this week. And my first one is Evan Ingram against the Bears. We all saw what Evan Ingram did on Monday night. He dropped 5 of his 7 passes. He had 2 catches for 9 yards. I'm expecting him to have a huge comeback. Last week, the Bears were 6th on the list for allowing scores to a tight end. Since they're a depleted Bears defense, and last year they actually finished 11th on that stat line with allowing touchdowns to tight ends. So I expect Evan Ingram to come out this week and be that guy for the Giants. Now, do I see Daniel Jones having a good game? No. Do I see Evan Ingram having a good game? Yes. Evan Ingram is going to probably catch about 80% of the passes this week that are thrown to him. If he has 10 thrown to him, he's going to catch 8 of them. I see this guy stepping up big. And another one following behind him is Dallas Goddard out of Philly.
Love him.
Dude, he's amazing. And Goddard actually hauled in 8 receptions for 101 touchdowns or 101 yards and a touchdown last game. And even though he's not that number 1 receiver right now or the number 1 tight end, he's definitely one of the second or third best receivers on that team. He's not even the number 1 tight end. You have Zach Ertz filling that spot. But Goddard is there.
Yeah, but Zach Ertz last season went down in production. So last season you saw that Zach Ertz wasn't really the man there anymore. So as of last year and as of week 1, it's time to maybe not start picking Zach Ertz so high up on drafts because I know he's probably one of the highest tight ends picked in drafts.
Yeah, definitely. When we move into tight ends, a tight end that you want to stay away from, Mike Kaseki against Buffalo this week. Mike Kaseki had 3 receptions for 30 yards.
You're killing the Dolphins.
I'm not trying to be rude about it, but Buffalo's defense is probably
he's right.
best.
He's right.
Buffalo's defense is probably the best defense in the AFC East if we want to get real about it.
Absolutely.
I think they have one of the better defenses.
Absolutely.
So I expect a big game out of them this week, and I don't see Kaseki getting more than 3 catches like he did last week. And another one there is who I kind of want to stay away from is Noah Fant against the Steelers. Wow. And I'll explain why. Noah Fant had 5 catches for 81 yards and a touchdown last week. The kid definitely has dollar signs surrounding him, but look at the stats that Pittsburgh throws at tight ends. You look at the Steelers, who are always been a tough matchup for tight ends. And if you go back to actually week 6 of last year was the last time that they allowed a tight end to have more than 36 yards.
Damn.
No tight end has had more than 36 yards since week 6 last season against the Steelers. And I expect the Steelers to continue that this week and shut down Fant and make them beat them on the ground game because Melvin Gordon cannot beat the Steelers on the ground. I see the Steelers coming out with the win on this game.
Devin Bush, Devin Bush is going to have that responsibility right there to shut Fant down. So I can see it.
That is a South Florida boy. I love me some Devin Bush, bro. That kid has been great since high school. I remember watching him at Flanagan. I mean, those are my tight ends that I feel like you definitely need to stay away from this week. If I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. But based on numbers, no tight end has a good week against the Steelers. And Mike Tomlin's defense does not let up. Ever since Mika Fitzpatrick went up that way, you saw a shift in that defense, and they became amazing.
Jesus, it's been 20 minutes of bashing the Dolphins. I love it.
It's really not, though.
Listen, he's not wrong, man. I mean,
wait till I get my defenses. You ready for this one? Number 1 defense to start this week. Who do you think?
Buffalo,
baby. I got him on my I got him on my fantasy. I'm in a $500 league. First place is $4,000. Buffalo's my defense, and I'm riding them the entire year.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to start, especially after what you saw from the offense of the Dolphins. You have to start Buffalo.
We're
all Dolphin fans here, except for Packer. But the only start that I really don't like, but that I'll rebuttal it is the Josh Allen one. We are first in passing.
No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. I'm sorry. I got to jump in on 2 things. Number 1, I talked to somebody on Twitter earlier today that they were talking about, do you think the Dolphins can pull out the win on Sunday? I'm like, can they? Yes. Will they? I hate to say it, probably not. Why? Because Buffalo has their number. And by the way, the reason Buffalo has their number, aside from how well the defense plays against them, is Josh Allen has been in the league 2 years. He's had 4 games against the Dolphins. Go look at his stats. He annihilates the Dolphins. Yeah. He runs all over them. They cannot catch up to him. And I still question his ability to throw the mid-range pass. But if somebody's open downfield, he gets him the ball. So he's either throwing bombs or running all over the place. I mean, statistically speaking, he's 4-0 in his career against the Dolphins. To the best of my knowledge, I don't think they lost a game against them. And he is statistically dominated, even when there's been close games, even when the Dolphins have kept it close. I mean, statistically, the Buffalo defense, I know that this is a new team and blah, 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 and they're home and the heat and this and it's going to be hot as hell on Sunday. I understand that. But, I mean, put the fan thing aside, because I am a Dolphin fan, but put the fan thing aside and be unbiased and say, well,
No,
I'm a big believer in history. And history tells me.
It's a genius start. It's a genius. You have to start him. You have to start him.
But there is one defense that I do rank above Buffalo for this week in FanDuel, if you're looking, and that's the 49ers. The 49ers are playing the Jets. So
the Jets.
we might skip over that game in the preview because I don't even know if there's anything.
49ers are playing
there.
the Jets, and we saw the struggles the Jets had against Buffalo last week, and this week they're going against even a tougher D line. With DeForest Buckner leading that line in San Fran, it's going to be very tough to get past them. And did I mention there's no Le'Veon Bell this week? That's your pick of the week.
Isn't
right
isn't Le'Veon Bell on IR?
Yeah, they put him on IR. I don't know if it's like for the year, but they put him on IR.
He's going to be done for a little bit.
Yeah.
Now, for defenses to avoid, my first defense I definitely want to avoid this week is the Colts defense against the Vikings. And the reason for that is you have Dalvin Cook coming off a game of 12 touches, 50 yards, and 2 touchdowns. The Colts are going to be in a long, long game with that kid. Dalvin Cook has been running wild on him. He ran wild on us. He only put up 50 yards, but if you guys actually watched the game, he was tough to tackle last week. I mean, I watched the game for the whole hour, and the kid is tough. He doesn't go down easy. I think the Colts are going to have a hard time with that. And my last pick, and I'm done. You guys can have the floor after this. Seattle against the Patriots. Stay far away. I've said this before. This is Sunday Night Football, and we have a rematch of Super Bowl 49. All right? You have Cam Newton at the helm. And personally, I believe with Cam Newton at the helm, you have Bill Belichick, who is opening a playbook that he has never opened before. You could not open the playbook for Cam Newton that you had for Tom Brady. You cannot. You have to do the RPOs. You have to do the QB sneaks. You have to account for the fact that Cam Newton can get up to 18 miles an hour and run his ass downfield. And he's quick. The kid is quick. He's big, but he's quick. And I don't think Seattle is ready for that. It's going to be a long flight for them, but I personally see the Patriots walking out of this game 28 to – I'm going to go 28-17, Patriots win. There's no home field advantage right now for Seattle. The 12th man does not exist right now because the fans are out. And that's going to be a big, big difference for Seattle. And until we see fans coming back in, I think you're going to see some Seattle struggles at home. I may be wrong, but we'll see.
One thing, anybody who knows me knows that. I do know my share of football, and I got about 40 years watching it. So when I speak, I kind of try to speak intelligently about it. I just met Joe. I literally just met him. And before I met him, I have the Indianapolis Colts defense. And the first thing I did was bench them before he even made his thing. So before I came on, and I hadn't even met him yet, I benched the Colts defense because even though they're my defense, I don't like their matchup. I totally do not like their matchup. And I like what you said about the Seattle New England game. I'm still gonna pick Seattle to win that game, even if without the 12th man, just because I think that flight for some reason East Coast teams flight across to the West Coast, that tends to mess them up a little bit. Even a guy like Cam Newton, I think it's gonna be a good game. It could go either way, but I am still gonna take Seattle because I still think Russell Wilson might not statistically be a play, but I think he's still going to find a way to, even if it's scrambling, to win that game.
Hey, I agree with you. Coach Kelly, can I ask you a question?
Shoot.
You think Cam Newton's got a fire under his ass right now? You think he wants to win in New England? You think he wants to prove everybody wrong? You think he wants to earn more than $1 million next year?
I definitely think he is. And I really believe that Seattle defense led by Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams, they're not going to allow him to run the ball the way he ran the ball in week 1. So basically, Belichick and their OC in New England, they're going to have to open up the passing game. So where people might say sit Cam Newton, I think Cam Newton, it is going to be a decent passer this week. Possibly, I'll say maybe 249, 260 yards. Julian Edelman, I think he'll have a solid game this week.
You think Edelman's gonna have a solid game? He was one of
Yes.
my sit-ems, and Seattle's a tough defense, but I just don't see their They struggled with Atlanta last week. They struggled with Atlanta.
They did.
Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, they might have handled Atlanta, but Matt Ryan put up 450 yards on that defense. Yeah. I mean, it might have been garbage time, whatever. They might have had a lead, whatever.
Yeah, but
he's still
you're comparing Matt Ryan, which is a better passer.
Well, I'm not saying Cam Newton's going to throw for 450, but with the RPO, the short passing game, the intermediate routes, he could, like Coach said, I could see him going for 260 on that defense. If Matt Ryan can go for 450, Cam Newton can go for 260 on that defense. Now it's a matter of, like you said, X's and O's. How are they gonna contain the RPO? If they can contain the running game? Because at the end of the day, I mean, I think Cam is a good passer. I don't think he's a great passer. And if they force him into, they could force him into mistakes. But I don't see him throwing for 450. But if McDaniels can put together a nice little thing to obviously go against the Seattle defense, he could have a 260 touchdown game. I can totally see that.
I think we're all
Belichick. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Carlos.
I just think we're all underestimating Pete Carroll over there in Seattle. Like I'm gonna stick to my guns and say that the Patriots are not as good as people think they are. I don't believe in Cam Newton, and especially not after what I saw what he did against the Dolphins. We were in a game that we had no reason to be in, and I think the Patriots this week are gonna get slapped back to reality. Like, hey, you don't have Tom Brady anymore. I don't think that offense is gonna work, and I think Seattle's just gonna hover over that offensive line, and they're going to blitz everything, and they're going to have Jamal Adams covering on Cam Newton. I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I don't see the Patriots winning the game at all.
Okay. All right. We'll see, man. These are my bold predictions. That's why I'm here. You guys brought me on my bold predictions, and I love it. I want to give them.
Like I said, and I said it when I had the Matrix behind me, there's fantasy and there's reality. We could talk about the reality of Cam Newton, and we could talk about the reality of Seattle defense. Talk about the 12th man, which obviously isn't there. We're talking about fantasy, just like I talked about Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is that Washington defense is tough, and they may not win, and they may win but Kyler Murray is still going to put up stats. And this is about numbers. This is about numbers and touchdowns. It doesn't matter if he wins a game or not. This is about what he's going to do on the field. Just like Devontae Adams. The Packers may beat the Lions handily, and Devontae Adams may have nothing to do with it because Aaron Jones owns the game. This is about numbers.
Yep. Hey, Coach Kelly, who's going to be your breakout quarterback this week? Who do you see that didn't make a big name last week, but they're going to do something big this week? Do you have someone in mind?
Oh, that's a tough question because
great question.
I mean, my breakout quarterback I think is my guy who had a great game week one. That was Russell Wilson, but the guy this week to have a phenomenal game that didn't have one last week, that's tough. You got any names for me out there?
For me, I think Joe Burrow is going to ball this week on Thursday Night Football. I think all the lights are on Joe Burrow. I think this is his time. He's going to say that he's the better one. He's the better number one overall draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
He's the king of Cincinnati, the king of Ohio. I think that Joe Burrow, being from Ohio, is going to be, and it's tough to say this, and I may be wrong, give it 10 years. I'm going to go out on a limb. Joe Burrow is going to be the LeBron James of football for Ohio. He's going to be that kid that everybody loves that came from the small town.
He could be. He very well could be.
Yeah.
That right there is a phenomenal prediction. I can't agree. I mean, a hometown hero for the state of Ohio. Shout out to Joe Burrow.
There you go.
My only issue with
I'm very excited for that game Thursday.
Yeah, I'm getting more excited for it as it comes. My only thing with Burrow, and I've said it numerous times, I love him. I absolutely love him. My only thing is, because remember, AJ Green is, he's upright right now, but he's got a tremendous injury history.
Can he stay
healthy? Can he stay healthy? The weapons you're gonna, and not just now, like you said, 10 years from now, but if you're gonna have Joe Burrow be your king of Ohio, you gotta put people around him. You gotta, if God forbid, go out and get Jamar Chase next year in the draft. If you're a top 5 team, go get him his receiver from college. Go get him, go get him his weapons, because obviously he's got the tools and he's got the cojones to do whatever he needs to do. I think he's got the moxie and the will to be a very, very like to be the king of Ohio. But you got to put the weapons around him, because he's not going to be able to carry this team by himself. He can't.
Does AJ Green finish this season in a Cincinnati Bengals jersey?
No.
I
If
say
they're smart, no.
I say
if
yes,
they're smart.
but I say yes, but on the sidelines it's some kind of cast.
I don't know. I see a big trade coming somewhere.
Really?
And
If
think
you're
there's a trade
Cincinnati, look, I put it to you as
What are you gonna get for him? The guy's
football
broken,
fan.
man.
you
Yeah,
get
but
you can get a first round pick. You can get a first round pick for AJ Green.
No,
You can't get a first round pick for AJ.
No.
A second round pick for AJ Green.
No.
On talent and numbers, I think you can. On tremendous injury history, I think you can't.
To the right team, if they're ready and they need a receiver like
it
AJ
would have
Green
to
that
be
they
like the
could plug in there,
It would have to
you
be
would
the
have to go
perfect
somewhere
situation.
where there's already a number one, like a bona fide number one receiver, and then you can put him as a number two where he doesn't get all the pressure and he doesn't get all the attention. If that is a perfect case scenario, I think you can get a 4th round pick for him. The question is, does AJ Green want to go to a team that's going to be battling in the playoffs, or does he want to stay in Cincinnati? And I think ultimately he deserves the respect for Cincinnati to give him that respect and decide if he wants to leave or not. That's
Two
ultimately what I
teams.
think is going to happen.
2 teams I can see him ending up in. One is Seattle, and the other one is Houston. Houston just lost their number 1 receiver. They have a good number 2 in QT. They have the run game. They just signed Watson. They need to get Watson a new toy.
Yep, they do. They absolutely do, because
need to get
they
Watson
have
a
a
toy.
but they, like I've said before, the Texans have a lot of talent and a lot of speed, but they lost that number 1 guy and they don't have a number 1 guy. So maybe they're
Well, if he's got anything,
that.
if he's got any left, you probably can get a 1st round pick from Bill O'Brien, because he just gives it away
Because
for
that
fun.
dumb
Yeah.
bitch gives away
He's
first round picks for
it's like
fun.
candy. It's like
I
candy.
don't think he's got any left, but I mean, unless you're talking about a 1st round pick, 4 years from now, because I think he's giving away his entire draft for like the next 3 years. But
Who knows? He might end up in Miami. You never
Bro,
know.
this episode's over. You're fine. No more. I've had enough.
Hey, man. All right. I appreciate everybody tuning in from my side of everything. This has been absolutely amazing for me. I'm going to stick around for the rest of the show because I feel like I have some things to talk about as well. But, hey, man, this is where I'm going to let you guys take over. This is your show. Thank you for having me on. But I'm going to stick around for a little bit. So you guys go ahead and chop it up. I want to hear what y'all got to say.
Hey,
Joe,
we're gonna
you're
go-
awesome, bro. I love
Thank you.
your takes.
Tell behind me, I got my belts up on the wall. Please follow us at Wrestling Paradox Podcast. We are an up-and-coming podcast. We interview a lot of local talent, a lot of young indie kids. We want to give these kids a start up how they can get going and get their story out there so you guys can fall in love with them if you're wrestling fans. So give us a follow on YouTube at Wrestling Paradox Podcast or on Twitter at Podcast Paradox. So, hey, man, we appreciate it. And thank you guys again for having me on. And if you guys don't mind, I would love to come back. I would definitely love to come back.
You'll be back next week. You'll be back next week.
Yeah, you'll be back. Don't worry.
I'm in the group chat. It's official now.
Listen,